Welcome, dear listener, to another journey into the timeless world of myth and legend. Today, we look to the sky, where clouds gather and the heavens roar with thunder. For the ancient Greeks, a storm was never just weather. It was the voice of a god, the sign of a ruler, the presence of Zeus, the thunderer. Zeus, the king of Olympus, was more than the guardian of law and order. He was the master of the sky, shaping the weather and commanding the storm. Every flash of lightning was seen as his signal to humankind. Every roll of thunder was heard as his mighty declaration. To the Greeks, storms were reminders of power, balance, and divine will. Yet Zeus's storms were not only feared but also honored. Through rain he gave life, nourishing the earth and renewing the fields. Crops grew, rivers swelled, and human life was sustained. In his thunder, people heard both warning and promise. In his rain, they found blessing and renewal. So in this episode, we will uncover Zeus's role as the bringer of storms. We will explore his myths, his meaning, and the thunder that still echoes today. When we think of Zeus, the first image is the endless sky. Vast and unending, it reminds us of forces greater than ourselves. To the ancient Greeks, the sky was alive with mystery and meaning. It was the domain of Zeus, the sky father who ruled from above. Zeus was not distant, nor was he silent. His presence was revealed through every shift of the sky. The rising sun was a sign of his order and stability. Dark clouds gathering were signs of his will at work. And when the storm broke, it was Zeus declaring his power. This power was not only meant to inspire fear, it was a reminder that the world was under divine care. The crops, the rivers, even the winds were guided by Zeus. Storms were not simply destruction, but part of balance. The Greeks saw the sky in layers of meaning. The clear heavens above represented light and truth. The drifting clouds reflected mystery and change. The storm was Zeus making his authority undeniable. Imagine ancient times without signs or forecasts. A farmer prayed to Zeus for rain over his fields. A sailor begged for safe passage when thunder roared. A city rejoiced in calm skies as a blessing. Ruling the sky placed Zeus above all other gods, even Poseidon of the seas and Hades of the underworld. The limitless sky stretched over all creation. It symbolized universal power and endless reach. Zeus was not only a ruler but also a protector. He was father of gods and mortals, watching from above. The sky became a canopy of care for life below. Storms were warnings but also signs of renewal. In lightning, people saw his anger and arrogance. In rain, they saw his gift of generosity. Myths describe Zeus holding the thunderbolt of storm. This was not only a weapon, but a symbol of order. It showed that chaos would never rule unchecked. Thunder reminded mortals of humility and respect. Rain refreshed the land and brought new life. Calm after the storm restored balance to the world. Artists often show Zeus lifting the thunderbolt high. It was the image of authority, not just strength. A sign of justice carried by the endless sky. The sky's power is a paradox of fear and beauty. It can destroy but also nurture life. It terrifies yet comforts, frightens yet blesses. Zeus embodied this paradox in his role as Sky Father. He was not only wrathful, not only kind, he was both woven together in the heavens. To call Zeus the Thunderer is to speak of more than storms. It is to recognize a power greater than any king. It is to believe the world is guided, not random. The sky was the stage where Zeus revealed himself. Even today, thunder stirs something ancient in us. It feels like more than weather, more than sound. It carries a memory from the age of myth. The Greeks would say, "It is Zeus, reminding us still. When the ancients saw lightning split the heavens, they did not see chance. For them, lightning was the clearest mark of Zeus himself. It was his signal, his weapon, and his voice from the sky. The thunderbolt was more than a tool of power. It was a sacred symbol of divine order and justice. Each strike reminded mortals that the universe was not silent. It was guided, it was ordered, and Zeus stood at its center. The Greeks believed Zeus never used the thunderbolt recklessly. It was not random destruction, but purpose in action. When the balance of the world was threatened, he struck. Lightning was a reminder that pride and arrogance would fall. The thunderbolt was both feared and revered by mortals. It was a sign that Zeus was present and watchful. In its light, people saw protection as well as warning. It was both a promise of justice and a call to humility. The thunder that followed was like the echo of his voice. It rolled over mountains, seas, and cities without pause. To stand beneath a storm was to feel close to him. It was all feeling small, yet also sheltered by the divine. In myth, the thunderbolt often symbolized order defeating chaos. One story tells of Zeus gaining it after the Titan War. The Cyclops forged it as a gift for his victory. From then on, the thunderbolt became his eternal signature. Imagine how powerful that was to the ancient Greeks. When lightning split the sky, they could whisper, "Zeus is here," not just in temples, but alive in the heavens above. The natural world became his temple, the bolt his sacred flame. Artists and poets captured this image endlessly. Statues showed Zeus raising the thunderbolt high in his hand. It was not simply a weapon, but a crown of authority. Writers described it as fiery, blinding, unstoppable, yet just. It was reassurance that chaos would never triumph. For everyday Greeks, the thunderbolt carried personal meaning. Farmers saw lightning as a call for humility before nature. Rulers saw it as a warning to guard against arrogance. Travelers heard thunder as fear and comfort together. Its dual nature made thunder and lightning powerful symbols. They are sudden and unpredictable, yet universal in reach. They inspire fear, yet they also bring nourishing rain. They cannot be controlled, but they can be respected. This duality mirrored Zeus himself, stern and generous alike. Even today, lightning stirs something primal within us. Science explains it, but our hearts still leap at the flash. Thunder makes us pause, even in a modern world. It awakens an ancient memory, echoing the age of myth. The Greeks would say Zeus was touching the earth again. The thunderbolt is more than a relic of myth. It shows how people once saw the world alive with meaning. Lightning was not just weather, but a message from the sky. It was a bridge between mortals and the divine. At the center of this connection stood Zeus the Thunderer. In his hand, he held the most powerful symbol of all. The thunderbolt was not only the mark of a god, it was light, justice, and the eternal reminder of his sky. When the ancient Greeks stood beneath a storm, they did not hear only wind and thunder. They heard a voice, a divine voice that spoke through the sky. To them, the storm was Zeus himself, communicating with mortals. Thunder was more than sound, it was alive, filled with meaning. When it rolled across the heavens, it felt like someone was speaking. That someone was Zeus, the father of gods and men. The storm was his language, the way he made his will known. When thunder roared, it was a warning sent from above. When lightning flashed, it was a signal, sharp and clear. And when rain poured down, it was a blessing, a gift to earth. Zeus often spoke through storms instead of appearing in person. His voice came in sudden flashes, rolling thunder, or long rains. Mortals learned to listen carefully, for silence from Zeus was rare. For farmers, storms meant hope, a promise of growth and harvest. For sailors, thunder at sea was both a fear and a reminder. It warned of their fragility, but also showed Zeus was watching. For rulers, storms could reveal approval or divine disapproval. The storm itself became a living oracle in the heavens. Storms held a dual nature, terrifying yet life-giving. They could shake the earth and sea with violent power, but they also refreshed the land and renewed life. When Zeus spoke through storms, it was both warning and guidance. He reminded mortals of their place and their need for humility. To the Greeks, the natural world was the canvas of gods. Zeus did not need to appear in temples or halls. His voice was woven into the thunder rolling across the sky. The storm itself carried his messages, louder than any speech. The flash of lightning gave emphasis to what words could not. Through storms, Zeus showed himself as protector of justice. If arrogance or pride grew unchecked, thunder brought correction. A clap above a city could bring people back to reverence. A sudden strike near a temple could remind them of order. His storm voice was never empty, it was always meaningful. Homer often describes Zeus thundering from the clouds. It was never just weather, it was a declaration of authority. The storm was louder than armies, greater than kings, undeniable. No mortal could ignore the voice of Zeus when the sky shook. Imagine standing on a hillside in ancient Greece. The sky darkens, the winds rush, clouds twist into darkness. Suddenly, lightning cracks across the heavens with blinding light. The earth trembles as thunder rolls over distant mountains. You would not think of chance or science in that moment. You would feel awe, humility, and reverence in your heart. You would hear the voice of Zeus. This experience is timeless, reaching even into our world today. When storms rage, we still feel small beneath the vast sky. Though science explains, the feeling of awe remains the same. It is as if storms still carry a message across time. For the Greeks, the storm was always the voice of Zeus. It warned, it blessed, it commanded silence when needed. The storm was never empty noise, it was divine speech. So when thunder roared, the Greeks listened with reverence. And when lightning flashed, they lifted their eyes to the sky. In the storm, they heard not chaos, but the voice of Zeus. The thunderer spoke through wind, rain, and thunder above. In every culture, storms inspire awe. They shake the ground, light the sky, and remind us of powers greater than ourselves. For the ancient Greeks, storms were more than weather. They were guardians of balance, signs of divine order. At the center of this vision stood Zeus, Lord of the sky. He was not only the wielder of thunderbolts, he was also the protector of harmony in the cosmos. Through storms, he kept balance between chaos and order. A storm could terrify, but it always carried meaning. It showed that disorder would never reign unchecked. The Greeks saw order as sacred and divine. The Titans had once ruled with raw power and chaos. When Zeus rose to victory, he brought balance and law. He set rules for gods and mortals alike, and storms became one of his instruments of justice. A storm begins with silence and gathering clouds. Winds rise, shadows stretch, and the world holds its breath. Then the sky erupts in thunder and lightning. Rain pours down, washing away dust and heat, and when it clears, the air feels pure and new. This cycle mirrored Zeus's own rhythm of justice. Disruption comes, but it is followed by renewal. When pride swelled, thunder reminded mortals to bow. When corruption spread, lightning struck as a sign of correction. When gratitude faded, rain returned to humble and bless. Storms were not punishments alone, they restored balance. For rulers, storms carried lessons in humility. A king could command armies but never command the sky. The storm belonged only to Zeus, master of Olympus. When he spoke, even the proudest bowed their heads. For ordinary people, storms were both fear and comfort. They feared sudden lightning that could strike without warning. Yet they trusted that storms were guided, never random. Each storm was Zeus declaring, "Order still holds." Myths tell how Zeus used storms to halt chaos. He silenced wars, humbled the arrogant, and set boundaries. His storms were not only destructive, they were protective. They stood as barriers between harmony and disorder. Poets called him the one who thunders from Olympus. His thunder was not noise, it was authority made sound. No mortal could resist when the heavens shook. A storm over mountains was Zeus keeping watch. A storm at sea was Zeus testing courage and faith. This is why the Greeks revered storms deeply. To curse them was to forget the order they upheld. Storms reminded mortals of their place in the cosmos, small beneath the sky, yet sheltered by its guardian. Imagine the calm after a storm in Greece. The earth soaked, the air cool, clouds breaking apart. Sunlight catches raindrops, turning them into sparks of fire. To the Greeks, this was divine balance restored. The storm had cleansed and harmony returned. Even now, we feel this ancient pattern in storms. Science explains them, but all still remains. Lightning humbles us, thunder warns us, rain renews us. These emotions echo the Greek truth of balance. Zeus was the guardian of that sacred order. The storm was his voice, his messenger, his shield. It was more than power, it was also a promise. A promise that chaos would never reign again. Zeus, the thunderer, stood watch over heaven and earth. And when storms raged, mortals felt his protection. They felt his guardianship of the harmony of life. When we think of storms, we often focus on their power. The thunder that shakes the ground, the lightning that splits the night sky, the winds that bend trees and scatter leaves with force. But for the ancient Greeks, storms meant more than danger. They were also signs of renewal, the hand of Zeus bringing life. When rain fell, fields awakened with fresh energy. Seeds hidden beneath the soil broke open to grow. The dry ground softened, and rivers swelled with water. To the Greeks, this was divine generosity, not chance. Zeus ruled the skies from his throne on Olympus. He gathered clouds and chose the moment for rain. When it poured, it was his blessing to the earth. The storm was frightening yet nourishing at the same time. Imagine a farmer watching his crops in drought. The soil cracked, the sun burned, hope grew thin. Then dark clouds gather, thunder rolls in the distance. Lightning flashes across the horizon, and rain begins. The farmer lifts his eyes and whispers thanks to Zeus. The storm, fierce and wild, has saved his harvest. Storms held a dual nature that reflected Zeus himself. He was not simply a punisher but a restorer. Storms could tear down, but they could also build. They frightened mortals, but they also blessed them. And every drop of rain was a reminder of dependence. The Greeks linked storms with fertility and abundance. Rain made crops flourish and vineyards come alive. Pastures grew green again. Animals thrived with ease. Without Zeus's storms came drought and famine. With them came renewal, hope, and abundance. Even temples honored Zeus as the giver of rain. He was both the provider and the protector of life. Poets wrote of storms cleansing the air and land. They described them as cycles of divine rhythm. Dryness gave way to tension, then clouds and rain. Each time, balance and renewal returned to earth. Sailors also understood storms in their own way. At sea, storms could bring peril and fear. yet they also filled rivers and swelled harbors. Even dangerous storms kept the world alive and moving. Without them, seas would stagnate and land would wither. Storms also carried spiritual meaning for mortals. They taught that destruction was never the final word. After lightning came rain, after thunder came calm, after storms came renewal and restored life. Zeus's storms spoke of resilience and balance. They showed that life returns stronger after disruption. This shaped Greek culture in profound ways. Storms became moments of humility and gratitude. Yes, storms frightened mortals with their might, but they also promised that after fear came growth. Even today, storms carry that timeless message. We feel the freshness of the air after rain. We watch trees glisten and rivers swell again. We sense peace in the silence after thunder. Science explains storms, yet awe still remains. They renew not just the land, but also our spirit. For the Greeks, Zeus embodied this truth. His storms were instruments of life and balance. Each rainfall was a divine gift to the world. He was the thunderer, but also the nourisher. His storms cleared the old and made way for new. The Greeks saw both fear and gratitude in storms. They bowed to Zeus's power and gave thanks for rain. Every storm was a challenge, but also a blessing. Storms became sacred signs of renewal and hope. They told mortals that life still flowed from Zeus. The god of thunder was also the giver of fertility. Through each storm, he gave both power and promise. When lightning strikes, it feels sudden and fierce. A flash across the sky, a roar that shakes the earth. It comes without warning, and it demands full attention. For the ancient Greeks, this was never random. Lightning was a message, a voice from the heavens. It was Zeus himself, speaking through fire and thunder, a sign that justice was alive and watching. Zeus was the protector of oaths and truth. Those who broke promises feared the sound of storms. A clap of thunder was more than weather. It was a reminder that nothing escaped Zeus's gaze. When Zeus hurled thunderbolts, it was not only rage. He was restoring balance to the world below. He made order triumph over chaos once again. The storm became his stage of justice and truth. Picture a crowded marketplace in ancient Athens. Merchants trading, voices rising, disputes breaking out. Suddenly, thunder cracks, and silence fills the square. The message is clear. Zeus is watching. Justice matters, and so does truth. Every word beneath the sky reaches his ear. The storm was punishment, but also warning. It told mortals to live with honesty and care. It urged respect for laws and sacred traditions. To betray trust was to invite Zeus's storm. Stories spread of mortals who learned this lesson. Storms broke dishonorable acts and silenced corruption. Rain fell on liars, winds tore through false witnesses. These were seen as moments of Zeus correcting. His storms guided mortals back toward truth. They gave storms deep moral weight and meaning. Storms were more than weather. They touched the soul. They cleansed not only the air but conscience too. Poets described storms as arrows of justice. Lightning was the bright mark of truth above. Through storms, Zeus wrote judgments in the sky. Sailors prayed for calm seas and honest oaths. Kings swore treaties beneath the open sky. Families kept promises fearing Zeus' gaze. Justice was not abstract. It was felt in storms. Even philosophers reflected on this truth. They saw storms as proof of hidden order. Behind lightning was a moral truth of balance. The storm was not chaos, but correction. And Zeus valued balance above all else. Storms did not strike at every small lie. They came when the scales tipped too far. Storms taught patience as well as fear. Justice might be slow, but it was certain. After storms, the air felt clear again. The world seemed reset and new. For the Greeks, this was Zeus's justice. Storms removed the false and revealed the true. Rain washed streets and guilty hearts together. Thunder shook homes and troubled consciences alike. Lightning lit the sky and also mortal truth. Through storms, Zeus ruled morality and nature. Every action carried weight under his gaze. Every word spoken carried consequence. Justice, though delayed, arrived like thunder. The Greeks feared storms but respected them deeply. They saw proof that their world was judged. Storms showed Zeus cared for order and truth. Each one was his reminder of justice. So when thunder rolled across Greece, mortals listened. It was not only nature they heard, it was the voice of justice itself, the voice of Zeus, the thunderer, reminding them. Integrity mattered, and he would see it kept. When the sky darkened and thunder rolled, the Greeks listened. It wasn't just weather to them, but a voice from above, a signal sent from the throne of mighty Olympus. Zeus was not a distant god, silent and unreachable. He spoke through the elements that surrounded mortals. Storms were his greatest language, fierce yet clear. Thunder was his word, lightning his gesture, rain his seal. For mortals, storms were moments to pause and reflect. Each rumble carried approval, warning, or command. Each flash of light was a sign of what was to come. Priests and oracles studied the skies with devotion. They watched lightning. They counted the echoes of thunder. They believed storms carried the will of Zeus. Every storm was a conversation between gods and mortals. Imagine Delphi, sacred seat of prophecy and mystery. Pilgrims gathered, awaiting the oracle's divine words. The heavens stirred. Thunder echoed against the mountains. The oracle whispered, "Zeus has answered." The storm itself became a prophecy fulfilled. Sailors also felt storms as divine communication. At sea, no rumble or shift of wind was ignored. Storms could mean warning or sometimes rare favor. They guided journeys, urging caution or granting blessing. Farmers read storms as messages for their fields. Gentle rain meant encouragement from the sky. Violent downpour felt like rebuke or warning. The sky was parchment, and Zeus wrote across it. Greeks did not see storms as obstacles. They were conversations with the divine, lessons from above. Moments to realign, reflect, and remember their place. Poets describe storms as whispers from Olympus. Lightning was the piercing glance of Zeus. Thunder was the echo of his command. Storms were dialogue between heaven and earth. One tale tells of a general before war. His troops restless, his heart filled with doubt. Then lightning split the sky, thunder roared above. The message was clear. Zeus had spoken. The general marched with certainty of divine favor. But storms could also bring warnings. A violent wind tearing sails could mean do not go. Endless rain was Zeus urging patience and restraint. Mortals learned to weigh each storm as communication. Storms were part of daily life, not just weather. They were divine correspondents, constant and alive. Proof the gods were near, attentive, and engaged. Even silence after a storm carried meaning. When rain stopped and the air stilled, Zeus had spoken. Mortals breathed easier, knowing they had received his word. The Greeks wove this belief into ritual and prayer. Offerings were made after storms, thanks were given. They answered the dialogue with devotion and respect. Communication was never one-sided between God and mortal. Storms became bridges from Olympus to the earth. They carried fear, but also comfort and clarity. They reminded mortals they were never alone. When lightning danced across the horizon, it was a message, a sentence written in fire across the night sky. When thunder shook the valleys, it was not just sound. It was the word of Zeus carried on the wind. Through storms, Zeus spoke of power and presence. He was watching, guiding, reminding, teaching always. Each storm was proof of a living bond between the thunderer and the mortals below. In every storm, the Greeks heard their god, the mighty Zeus, his voice echoing through the sky. When we picture Zeus the thunderer, we see lightning splitting the skies. But beyond storms, Zeus was the guardian of justice and order. His storms were more than displays of nature's force. They were reminders that balance ruled the world. For the Greeks, storms carried judgment as well as rain. They meant Zeus was watching, weighing, and correcting. Zeus was not only ruler of the heavens above, he was keeper of oaths and protector of law. When kings swore vows, they called upon his name. When mortals gave their word, Zeus was their witness. Breaking an oath was never just dishonesty. It was a violation against Zeus himself. And when deceit spread, the skies turned dark. Thunder became his warning, lightning his judgment. Imagine a council locked in tense debate. Voices rose, ambition clouded reason, pride filled the room. Then thunder cracked, rolling across the mountains. The men paused, hearts shaken by the sound. Some heard warning, others heard approval. But all believed Zeus had spoken from above. So storms kept mortals humble and cautious. They reminded all that their choices had weight. Tales told of greed met with divine storm. A rich man hoarded food during a famine. His neighbors cried out, but he refused aid. Then clouds gathered, lightning split the night sky. People saw the storm as Zeus's justice. Balance was restored where greed had tipped the scale. Yet not all storms were punishment or wrath. Sometimes rain fell as comfort and reassurance. A rumble in the distance could bring hope, a promise that the gods had not left them. Justice was not only correction but also care. Zeus's presence was constant, even in silence. Festivals honored him beneath the open sky. Fires burned, prayers rose, voices sang his name. Eyes lifted, searching for signs in the heavens. A breeze, a spark, a roll of thunder, his reply. Justice was alive, carried upon the storm. Poets painted Zeus's storms as moral symbols. Thunder became the sound of truth itself. Lightning was the flash of judgment revealed. Storms were woven into the rhythm of justice. This belief gave meaning to mortal struggles. Life was uncertain, seas rough, harvests fragile. Yet storms proved justice was near and awake. Comforting and terrifying, Zeus's justice never slept. Even today, thunder still shakes our hearts. Science explains storms, yet all remains timeless. Lightning startles us, thunder humbles us, rain renews us. Zeus, as guardian of justice, still speaks through myth. Justice, like the storm, is not always gentle. It can be fierce, heavy, yet always necessary. Through storms, Zeus reminded mortals of cosmic order, that life was not chaos, but harmony and law. Every flash of lightning spoke of fairness restored. In thunder's voice was the promise of balance, and in Zeus, mortals trusted the storm of justice. When we picture Zeus the thunderer, we see him high in the clouds. But for the Greeks, Zeus was not distant, he was present on earth. His power lived in sacred places, touched by storms. Mount Olympus was his most powerful symbol. Its peaks wrapped in clouds seemed alive with his presence. Thunder echoed like his voice across the mountain air. Lightning flashing over Olympus reminded mortals he was near. But Olympus was not the only place Zeus revealed himself. Across Greece, sanctuaries and groves carried his storms. At Dodona, the oracle of Zeus spoke through oak leaves. The rustle of branches became the whispers of the god. When storms swept the grove, the message grew stronger. Thunder rolled, leaves trembled, mortals listened with awe. These places were more than temples, they were bridges to heaven. To step into them was to walk into divine energy. Priests read the skies, seeking signs in wind and rain. A downpour during sacrifice could mean Zeus's favor. A lightning flash above the altar might warn of caution. The gods spoke directly through storm and silence. Sailors felt his storms when they crossed the seas. At Cape Saunion, they prayed to Poseidon and to Zeus. Storms at sea were never random or meaningless. Winds, clouds, and lightning carried messages of guidance. A safe return was a blessing from the thunderer. Festivals, too, carried the presence of storms. At the Olympic Games, skies revealed Zeus's will. Clear weather was favor. Storms reminded mortals of humility. Athletes competed not only for glory but before Zeus himself. Every rumble reminded them of divine judgment. Even daily life was touched by sacred storms. A tree struck by lightning became a holy sign. Springs or stones marked by thunderbolts were honored with offerings. Mortals believed Zeus's touch left lasting reminders on earth. Storms were not feared as chaos, but honored as language. The Greeks built rituals around thunder and lightning. They listened to storms as if hearing divine speech. Through Olympus, Dodona, temples, seas, and festivals, Zeus spoke. His storms shaped the sacred geography of Greece itself. They proved that the divine was never far away. Rolling clouds, whispering leaves, flashing skies all carried his presence. To live in Greece was to live with storms, and to know Zeus was always present, always speaking. When thunder shakes our windows, we may not think of Zeus. Yet, in those flashes of lightning, his ancient presence lingers. The Greeks once believed storms were his voice and his will. That belief shaped how they saw the world around them. Artists later captured Zeus wrapped in cloud and light. Sculptors carved him with thunderbolt in hand, a symbol of majesty. Writers used his storms as images of awe and justice. Even today, language still carries echoes of the thunderer. We speak of thunderous applause and wielding thunderbolts. Such phrases borrow the ancient imagery of Zeus's power. Modern media keeps him alive in stories and film. Sometimes stern ruler, sometimes flawed, yet always stormborn. Children still hear tales of Zeus hurling lightning bolts. Museums show artifacts carved thousands of years ago. Festivals in Greece carry faint echoes of his rituals. Zeus has never disappeared, only adapted to each age. The storm itself explains why his legacy endures. Science explains lightning, yet all remains untouched. Thunder rolling at night still humbles the human spirit. In ancient Greece, thunder was Zeus himself speaking aloud. That feeling of reverence still exists in storms today. Zeus endures as more than myth, he symbolizes nature's power. He embodies our need to connect with forces beyond control. That is why he lives on in books, films, and games. Myths never vanish, they adapt, speaking to new generations. When storms shake us, we may remember Zeus in the clouds, and in that memory, the myth continues its life. Perhaps that is Zeus's true immortality wonder itself. The next time lightning flashes, pause and listen closely. Behind the science lies the story of the thunderer. Zeus, the bringer of storms, still rolls across the sky.